Well, cars and SUVs catching on fire with drivers behind the wheel. I-Team investigator Jackie Callaway pushing Kia and the feds for weeks now. And because of her stories, they are finally taking action. Jackie joins us now with the exclusive news Kia revealed to her just today. Jackie?
Wendy, I've interviewed half a dozen Kia owners whose cars and SUVs burst into flames. And for the first time today, Kia tells me they're going to examine at least 2 of those vehicles to find out what went wrong.
Is that their car?
It is.
I saw flames and smoke coming out of the front of the car.
Dwayne Silva and his 10-year-old son escaped the family's 2014 Kia Forte when the engine caught fire 3 weeks ago.
Me and my son just jumped out of the car, ran down the side of the freeway, and we looked back and the car is just engulfed in flames.
But my car's on fire.
I've interviewed a total of 6 Kia owners whose cars burned up in recent months.
Flames were already coming over the hood of my car.
Each one, including Thomas Clenard, who showed me emails, say Kia refused to inspect their vehicle.
They said that they weren't going to pursue it any further.
I've pushed Kia on this issue for weeks. Today, a corporate spokesperson confirmed they're tracking down 2 of the vehicles, a Forte and a Sorento, involved in the most recent fires we reported to them.
I am happy that they're doing that. They need to do something about this.
Tomorrow, Kia says it will inspect the Silva's Forte. We notified the family today.
We tried to contact Kia a few times, and they did not reach out to us till I believe they saw the story or heard the story somehow with you.
The I-Team uncovered more than 60 fires involving Optimas and Sorrentos between 2011 and 2014. Our stories caught the attention of the Center for Auto Safety and Senator Bill Nelson.
The minute I saw that, I said, we got to get to the bottom of this.
Both the Center for Auto Safety and the Senator formally requested the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration investigate these fires.
Get over! Get over!
Today, NHTSA says it'll review any non-collision fire complaints and other data on all Kia vehicles. NHTSA reports it's received more than 400 complaints. Now, this is involving both Kia and Hyundais. The review targets both automakers. It could lead to a safety defect investigation, and that could mean recalls. We'll continue to follow this story for you.
One of the most powerful and popular antibiotics on the market comes with a warning. But I-Team reporter Jackie Callaway finds that warning for this drug and others like it does not include the worst possible side effect, death. Jackie set out to find out why the risk of suicide is buried in the fine print.
Jill Cobb blames one of the most widely prescribed antibiotics in the country for destroying her physically.
I got leg hip pain so severe I could hardly walk.
And torturing her mentally.
I started to get more like panic attacks.
Between 2010 and 2016, the FDA fielded more than 31,000 complaints involving just one member of the fluoroquinolone family, Levaquin. Hundreds involved depression and anxiety.
And recently, we've identified 122 suicides within a day or 2 of taking the quinolones.
South Carolina's pharmaceutical watchdog, Dr. Charles Bennett, petitioned the FDA in 2014.
I have filed 2 citizen petitions personally.
He asked the agency to add a black box warning for psychiatric adverse events to Levaquin's label.
He started having these kind of like anxiety attacks and like heart palpitations.
Heather McCarthy says her son Shay never experienced mental health issues until a doctor prescribed Levaquin as a preventative following a simple surgery.
I believe it overcame him, and he, that was...
Within months, Shay dropped out of Purdue University and wound up on more drugs to treat bipolar disorder. In 2013, the 24-year-old jumped out of a second-floor window and ran his car into a concrete barrier.
This was a drug-induced death that was unnecessary.
Heather added her voice to those petitioning the FDA to do more to warn people about the mental health side effects linked to fluoroquinolones. I asked the FDA what was taking so long. In an email, the agency said the FDA is carefully reviewing available scientific information and will determine appropriate actions when this review is complete. Fluoroquinolones, including Cipro and Levaquin, contain warnings. But here's the problem. Take Cipro's 31-page insert. You have to go all the way down to the fine print on page 9 to find these warnings. Some patients say they've never seen them. Others who've suffered side effects say they've yet to recover.
If I'm not working, I'm in this bed.
11 months after taking her last dose of Levaquin, Jill continues to suffer from extreme pain in her tendons. Levaquin's black box warning includes the risk of tendon rupture. But for Jill, the depression and insomnia hurt just as much.
Our Jackie Callaway uncovers the stories of women left brokenhearted and broke, and what you can do to protect yourself from conniving Casanovas.
Guys like Ford Tremblay know all the right things to say.
Telling me, that he couldn't stop thinking about me.
Shelley, who lives in Pasco County, says she's too embarrassed to show her face.
Don't let this happen to you like it happened to me.
She met Ford, who used a fake name. We're blurring his photos because, well, that's not really him either.
Last Christmas, we were on the phone all day.
He gained her trust over 2 months and hours of phone conversation.
I thought I was in love with this man and I wanted to help him.
This fake Romeo said he was in the Navy and could not access his own account from the ship.
It's $1,000 in iTunes cards.
Shelley says Ford's payback check bounced and wiped out her account. She later discovered he lived in Nigeria.
They train people in how to communicate. They train people how to sell themselves, how to start a relationship.
I took over my life.
If you think you could never fall for an online romance ripoff, consider Debbie Montgomery's story.
I was a captain, and then these are the medals that I actually had.
The former Air Force intelligence officer met Eric Cole, a British contractor, on a faith-based single site. Cole wrote Debbie thousands of love letters over 2 years. Then he went after her life savings, one loan at a time.
It's what your heart's telling you, and I don't know, you can't turn your heart off sometimes.
It was how much?
$1,080,762.
Eric finally confessed and said he was really Joseph, based in Nigeria.
You have individuals in rows and lines of computer monitors that are doing nothing but, sending out these messages.
Inside, I was just dying. I was hurting. I felt stupid. I felt used.
The FBI reports people in Florida and across the country lost $1.3 billion in romance scams in 2016.
You are my favorite. Okay, it looks nice.
Victoria Magliaro met her romance artist on Our Time. But he lived right here in Tampa Bay.
I was physically dating him for 5 months, 6 months before.
Victoria says this Don Juan ran off with her computer and her car, opened a credit card in her name, and swiped $300 from her account.
I've got everything back, yes, because he didn't want to face grand theft charges.
Looking back, Victoria says her boyfriend never invited her into his home or his circle of friends or family. And that should have been a warning.
Not being invited into their world. Make sure you see their home.
Whether you're swiping, friending, or flirting, make sure you take some time to do some backgrounding. Plug in their name, address, and phone number into Google, and possibly most important, put their image in and do a search. That'll tell you if they're really the person they say they are. And this is always a sure thing. Whatever county they live in, go to that clerk of court site. That'll find everything from civil records to criminal charges.
Distractions behind the wheel cause thousands of crashes every year here in Florida.
Yeah, tonight there's a new tool that could determine whether a driver was texting at the time of a collision. ABC Action News I-Team reporter Jackie Callaway introduces us to something called a textilizer.
We set out in an unmarked car armed with a handheld camera.
She's ignoring the ambulance.
In the span of 20 minutes, we spotted half a dozen rush hour drivers focused on their screens, not the street.
That's one of my favorites.
FSU senior LaVon Reese paid the ultimate price when a texting driver slammed into her car doing more than 80 miles an hour. Do you feel not enough is being done in Florida to address the issues of texting and driving and the danger it poses?
Absolutely not.
LaVon's aunt, Gwendolyn Reese, considers current legislation aimed at making texting and driving a first offense a start.
So what I'm going to do is connect this device.
Technology created a tool that could aid law enforcement at the scene of a crash. You said it's a 90-second process?
It's approximately 90 seconds, yes.
The Textilizer works much like a breathalyzer.
Here are some of the actions that we saw.
Textilizer's manufacturer, Celebrite, sent engineer Chris Shin with a prototype for our demonstration. From the passenger seat, I went on Facebook. We'll see if this thing is spot on. Used WhatsApp to send a message. Sending the text. And I made and took a call. Hello. We pulled back into the parking lot where Chris plugged the Textilizer into the phone.
We can see a text message was sent at 11:40. A native call was made incoming at also at 11:40 in 13 seconds. A WhatsApp message was sent at 11:35. A Facebook call was made at 11:39.
The minute-by-minute report enables police to determine if distracted driving contributed to the crash.
An officer will only pull over a driver who they see manipulating a phone.
State Representative Emily Schlossberg lost her twin and 4 friends to a driver doing 90 miles an hour 20 years ago.
I have made it my priority to ensure that our roads are safer so no other families have to go through what I went through.
She's the driving force behind a current bill that would allow the cops to pull over a texting driver. Is this something that possibly the fall session you would be interested in introducing?
Would be incredibly valuable in helping prove texting while driving.
Celebrite says lawmakers in New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and Tennessee have expressed an interest, but the ACLU has already raised privacy concerns about the device.
The phone would never leave the person's hands, the driver's hands.
The tool records taps and swipes, not actual texts or content, and it'll never be used unless a law is passed.
Because you know you can't get away with it. You know you can't just walk away.
For the first time, we're hearing from 2 passengers that were on board that burning ferry you see right there off the coast of Newport Richey. Jackie Callaway shares their story and the challenges the 50 people faced as they made their way on shore in the cold.
We need to call 911.
Cell phone video captured Joan Gibbons' screams for help.
We need to call the Coast Guard.
And now, 12 days later,
I can't get it out of my mind.
Joan and her boyfriend Juan Martinez say they grew worried when thick black smoke started billowing from the boat.
Can we pray?
And the smoke was just getting more and more black. And we knew the boat was on fire. And one of the ladies that was standing by me also, she asked for a life jacket. Nobody did anything.
What was your biggest fear at that point?
We are going to have to get off this boat or we're going to burn in the boat.
Because you think you're going to die.
Juan was one of the first to jump in so he could assist others.
Porque esos tipos, hasta tu calle, calle del aro.
The smoke went in my face. It was very black and I couldn't see and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I just remember like hanging on to the bar and I just let go.
50 passengers stumbled and struggled against the quicksand-like bottom to get to shore.
And the water was like freezing. The sand was like quicksand. I have to get away from this because you don't know if it's going to blow up.
Oh, God. Oh, baby.
Here you can see Juan wading back into the frigid water to help other passengers get out.
Baby, be careful.
My feet go this very, very, very deep in the ground.
Joan may have escaped physical harm, but what happened that day left a scar you can't see. What is it that upsets you the most?
Like I keep just seeing it in my head over and over.
Joan says it's doubtful she'll ever board another boat. She and Juan are among 9 people who plan to sue the casino boat owner.